In contempt, the missionaries destroyed every examples of the images of Indian deity that they encountered, calling them horrid, ugly, and evil, which influenced our perspective in reviewing pre-Hispanic divinities. The missionaries quickly replaced what they destroyed with more compatible painted and carved figures with human-like, hence approachable, even amiable appearance. These figures also look daunting, hence strangely powerful in appearance. The gallery traces the history of religious paintings in the Philippines in the context of evangelization. The rapid conversion of the lowland population brought to the fore the need for more paintings and statues. But facing the difficulty to obtain these items from Spain or Mexico, the Spanish missionaries looked for local supply. The first part of the gallery echoes the story of the arrival of the religious orders of the Philippines, the genesis of Spanish colonial religious art. The Augustinians were first to arrive in the islands. Here we have two paintings of San Agustin de Hipona, the founder of the Augustinians. The scale of this painting suggests that it came from a church or convent built by the Augustinians. Inscribed below the image of the saint are the words San Agustin O.Y.D. O.Y.D. means Obispo y Doctor. Saint Augustine was the Bishop of Hippo and was also a doctor of the church. The second painting is by Mariano Asuncion. There are Latin inscriptions on the top of the oval frame and below the image. The inscription on the frame says, "A true picture of our Holy Father Augustine." Then below is a description of Saint Augustine as a heavenly man, a doctor of doctors with deep wisdom, who preaches and searches for the word of truth. IA was able to acquire a set of 4 portraits depicting the founder of these religious orders. They are arranged according to the chronology of the order's arrival here in the Philippines. First, San Agustin de Hipona for the Augustinian order who arrived in 1565, and the Recoletos who arrived last among the orders in 1606. Second, San Francisco de Asís for the Franciscans who arrived in 1587. Third, San Ignacio de Loyola for the Jesuits who arrived in 1580. Fourth, Santo Domingo de Guzman for the order of preachers who arrived in the Philippines in 1587. There are different types of paintings produced for evangelization. We can categorize them into 3. Both of these categories are large-scale. The first one are instructional pieces, meant to catechize. Images of heaven and hell, as well biblical scenes, fall into this category. Then there are devotional pieces like Stations of the Cross and Mysteries of the Rosary, as well as images of the Blessed Virgin in her various titles. And then, these small ones, meant for devotion inside homes, called attendant types. They are called attendant because they cater to personal needs. The subject they contain is regarded as a patron, guardians, protector, and intercessor. The distinctive preferences of the Philippine colonial community in its choice of devotion or need for particular saints was influenced by the frequency in the occurrence of its specific vicissitudes or causes of sufferings and the terror of its occurrences. Because the Philippines is largely an agricultural country, devotion to San Isidro, the patron of farmers, became popular. San Isidro is depicted tilling the soil with an angel on his right, illustrating the miracle that an angel was seen plowing his field so he can go on with his spiritual service. San Miguel, always depicted defeating the devil on his foot, is invoked as a protector against evil. Santa Barbara, a popular saint in modern times, perhaps best known as the patron saint of armorers, artillerymen, military engineers, miners, and others who work with explosives because of her legend's association with lightning and also of mathematicians. She is associated with lightning because her father was struck by lightning as punishment for having her beheaded for being a Christian. San Vicente is invoked as the angel of the Last Judgment because he often preached about repentance in preparation for the Last Judgment. Thus,
He always depicted with wings. This painting is surrounded by a colorful frame ornate with Rococo carvings.
These are triptychs, sometimes called urnas because they are like altars with doors that can be closed.
It contains images of the saints we have mentioned in the earlier images, with the addition of the Santo Niño.
The Santo Niño, given as a gift to the wife of the Rata of Cebu by Ferdinand Magellan in 1521, served to induct the Indio to the realities of colonization. These paintings represent certain points in the history of religious paintings in the Philippines.
The first painters are the Chinese inhabitants in Manila called the Sanglis. The Jesuit architect Father Antonio Cedeño is recorded for inviting the artistically inclined Chinese members of the exclusive Chinese district, Parian, to stay in the Jesuit mission house in Intramuros and learn the Western technique of artistic production. This painting reflects much of the Chinese influence, resembling the early works of art done by Chinese artisans. Observe the slanting eyes, the naive anatomical proportions, and rendition of the wounds. Icon paintings are renderings of actual images, venerated images in churches. That is why they are painted set in their altars. The first example is a painting of the Nuestra Señora de la Paz y Buen Viaje, or the Virgin of Antipolo. The painting was made definitely before the image acquired its dark skin that we see today. The painting shows refinement of more advanced work of the 19th century. The second example is that of Our Lady of Mount Carmel, venerated in San Sebastian Church in Quiapo. This is comparatively an earlier work than that of the Virgin of Antipolo. Surrounding the image of the Virgin are vignettes of the promises of the brown scapular. Professor Santiago Pilar theorizes that there was a Japanese painter who once lived in the Philippines and influenced religious painting. The hint is in the eyes. Observe the eyes of the two Mater Dolorosas and San Jose. They are characteristically Japanese, in contrast to the slanting eyes of the Chinese-influenced paintings. Let us focus on the first Mater Dolorosa, or the Sorrowful Mother. What is interesting in this painting is that the handkerchief and the dagger appears more as a symbolic than realistic. The handkerchief is not tucked in between the wrong hands. It instead looks like it's veiling the hands. Observe the almost translucent dagger as well. It symbolizes her sorrow, as prophesied by Simeon. A sword shall pierce your soul. Luke chapter 2, verse 35. Pieta ay Jesus at Mariang Ling sa kaibuturan ng hirap. This painting of the Pieta with an inscription ay Jesus at Mariang Ling sa kaibuturan ng hirap is attributed to Faustino Quiotan, a Chinese mestizo painter from Santa Cruz, Manila. He may have trained with the 18th century painters and engineers. He represents a transition period to a new tradition in Philippine painting. If you examine the painting closely, the face of the Virgin and Jesus are starting to show emotion, in contrast to the previous painting that we saw in the gallery. The wimple of the Virgin and the loincloth of Christ are made of translucent materials with fine embroidery. This particular attention to detail will be much more evident with the painters of the 19th century. With the opening of the Philippine ports to world trade in the mid-19th century, the inauguration of the Suez Canal, economic change came with cash crop agriculture.
These economic events had a momentous impact on art and culture. By royal fiat, art was secularized, released from its ecclesiastical moorings in the light of the new social demands. A new elite class, the Ilustrados, emerged and assumed the role of art patrons, opening secular perspective in art.
For their elegantly furnished mansions of wood and stone, they commissioned portraits that celebrated their social ascendance.
These portraits, mostly of women, were executed in a style called miniaturismo, derived from the Limner's art, which paid meticulous attention to details of costume and accessories indicative of their wealth and status.
But this doesn't mean that miniaturismo did not apply to religious painting. These are three examples of religious painting done in the miniaturismo style. This painting of the death of Saint Joseph shows the example of putting emphasis its material things in the household and the infusion of Filipino elements to an otherwise foreign setting. In the depiction of a dramatic scene of the Holy Family in their humble house in Nazareth, one may observe the Capice window on the right. Also, below the window are cups and saucers and a bottle, among other things. The painting of Nuestra Señora de la Paloma, or Our Lady of the Dove, shows high sophistication. The Virgin looks like a Philippine aristocrat, a unique combination of amiable and haughty. Observe the fine detailing of the design of the hem on the veil. The lilies and the roses are almost like still life, casting a shadow on the vestment of the Virgin. The red loincloth of the angels and the open scroll on the bottom are graceful and sinuous. This level of sophistication may also be observed in this painting of the Holy Family and the Holy Trinity. Observe the graceful folds and drapes of the vestments and the fine details of gold leaf designs. The poses show gentleness and restraint. Both of these paintings are by Simon Flores y de la Rosa. He represents the period when artists are already academically trained. He studied in the Academia de Dibujo y Pintura, the first art school in the Philippines. Here are small-scale examples of the miniaturismo style of the 19th century. La Santísima Trinidad, Mater Dolorosa, La Sagrada Familia. Of special mention, this drawing on Mother of Pearl of the Last Supper. The figures and the decorative elements are drawn with very fine brush strokes on tiles of Mother of Pearl. This wall presents some of the regional styles of painting. Localities have developed their own color palettes and way of rendering figures. Bohol has a distinguished color palette that is very appealing to the Filipino senses. Observe how the paintings seem to connect with each other. The blue sky, the orange horizon, the greenish mountains, and the bright reds in the focal point and the foreground. These paintings of the Nuestra Señora de los Remedios and the Nuestra Señora de la Correa are attributed to the Cebu style. Observe the gold diamond shapes that adorn the vestments of the two virgins. These are very common in Visayan painting and polychromy. Observe as well the seemingly equal folds of the vestments and grouping of clouds. In Professor Santiago Pilar's theory, there is once a master of Matalum who produced religious paintings in the region. Observe the common elements in these paintings. The face of the Virgin is round, almost egg-shaped, while the face of the male figures is in reverse. They have sharp beards at the end of their almost gaunt faces. The veil of the Virgin also outlines her face, following the round shape closely as if the fabric is clinging onto her silhouette.
These regions all come from the Visayas. Ending the wall is the painting of the Child Jesus by Visayan artist Tomas Llores y Codilla.
Here, Jesus is depicted as almost an adolescent holding a big orb surmounted by a cross. He also embraces a cross. Depictions of the Christ child like these are known as Salvador del Mundo, as inscribed at the bottom of the painting.
Closing the painting gallery is the painting of the Baptism of Christ.
Inscribed at the bottom, es Juan Bautista bautizado a Jesús en el Jordán. Paintings of the Baptism of Christ of this scale usually come from baptismal chapels inside churches.
Amid the disappearance of the Baybayin, the Indios' deprivation of Spanish, and the scarcity of books in the local languages, the Spanish missionaries converted the lowland natives to Christianity, especially aided by the admonition of paintings and statues, vicarious experiences induced by dramas and rituals, and the consolation of songs.